Welcome to the Daily English Show. Today's guest is Kris from Brisbane, Australia. He's been in Japan since the start of last winter, and he also spent 9 months in Kobe when he was a teenager. He was studying Japanese at high school, so he came over on exchange. He's a journalist and he used to work for a newspaper on the Gold Coast. Last winter he worked in Niseko for a kind of travel company, and over summer he spent 3 months in Tokyo teaching English. This season he's writing for this Niseko magazine called Powder Life. This is a free magazine for English-speaking tourists, so you should check it out if you come to Niseko. The first thing I asked Kris was how he enjoyed his time in Kobe.
It was great, yeah. I was a little bit homesick towards the end, but the first 6 months was amazing, and I learned a lot of Japanese, probably more than I have in any other time in my life. You know, studying in Australia, it's just so much easier to learn Japanese living in the country and living with Japanese people, so yeah, it's good.
Kia ora, in Stick News today, it's Family Day in Ontario, Canada. For the first time this year, people in Ontario will celebrate a new public holiday called Family Day. From now on, Family Day will be held on the third Monday of every February. The Premier of Ontario said, "There is nothing more valuable to families than time together, and yet it seems tougher than ever to find, with so many of us living such busy lives." 2 other provinces in Canada already celebrate Family Day, and according to Wikipedia, South Africa and a territory in Australia also have yearly family days. And that was Stick News for Monday, the 18th of February. Kia ora. Why did you come to Niseko? What kind of stories do you most enjoy doing? Is it very different working for a newspaper in Australia and working for this magazine? Now that so many people use the internet, what do you think the future of magazines is? Do you think you'll be in Niseko for a while? Do you use Japanese a lot these days? Have you studied any other languages apart from Japanese? Do you have any advice for people learning English?
Because my dad actually lives in Hokkaido, and he started a little bar in Hirafu, and I was going to come over and work here for just a season in the bar, for sort of as the start of my travels around the world, and he didn't end up doing the bar the following year, so I got a job with another company here, and yeah, that's how I ended up coming here. I like writing the stories about the interesting little people, the interesting little businesses and people in the area, because there is so many great little businesses and restaurants that not many people know about, and they can't really advertise because they are quite small, but a lot of the time they're not even interested in making as much money as they can. They just want to do their speciality as best they can. And I really love sort of finding out what drives those people and what they do and that kind of thing. Yeah, extremely different. Fundamentally you're still writing stories, but working for a newspaper you're doing, you're at the sort of the bottom of the chain, and you're told from the top what you have to write, and you've got absolutely no say in it. Basically, you can come up with ideas, but at the end of the day they can get shut down. They quite often do get shut down, and it's a very rigid 9 to 5 or sort of 8 till 7 o'clock type of job, and it's really stressful work conditions. Lots of really tight deadlines, especially in a daily newspaper. You've sort of got to get your stories, 2 or 3 stories done every day by a certain time, and everyone in the whole place is stressed out, so it makes for a pretty intense workplace. But over here, my boss is really relaxed and likes snowboarding probably more than I do, which says something. And so we work around snowboarding, and we sort of both help each other out, I think. I think the future of magazines is probably stronger than the future of newspapers. I think newspapers might die a little bit, but I think magazines may always be around, because it's nice to sort of hold a nice thick magazine with great pictures in it, flicking through it, and getting the great photos and stuff. You don't sort of get that quality in a newspaper, but with a magazine, maybe you do get that a bit more. I always love reading a good glossy magazine, although it may not be that good for the environment, I suppose. But yeah, if it's doing a good job, then I suppose you've got to toss up some things whether they're worth doing or not. Yeah, I'll be here for a good few years now. Probably mostly in the winters, but sometimes in the summers too. I'll definitely be back and forth during summers and springs and autumns. Probably not a lot, probably like 90% English and 10% Japanese when answering phone calls and making phone calls every now and then. And yeah, just talking to people who come in and with my Japanese friends who speak English and Japanese, I spend probably half-half. Sometimes we speak Japanese, sometimes we speak English. I do a lot of travel to Indonesia to go surfing, so I learnt a bit of basic Indonesian, sort of just travel Indonesian along the way, and then I had an elective at university, so I did two subjects of Indonesian, so I learnt some very basic Indonesian, which when I come over here I sort of forget because I'm trying to think in Japanese, and then when I go back to Indonesia I sort of can't remember for the first week. I'm sort of confusing it with Japanese, but then I get back into the Indonesian mode again. I would say, if you can, try and, it's difficult for a lot of people, but to live in an English-speaking country is definitely one of the best things you can do, even if it's just for 6 months, I think. I think that's probably the best thing you could do. Otherwise, try and speak to foreigners a lot, get out of the textbook, and actually just try and talk to people, and don't be scared about making mistakes as well, because even people who have been studying English for years and years, even their Japanese isn't perfect. Even their English isn't perfect. So just get out there and try and talk to people.
Where is Kris from? A. Brisbane, B. Melbourne, C. Sydney. A. Kris was originally planning to come to Niseko and work in A. bar, B. shop, C. factory. A. Kris said he thinks the future of magazines is A. not as strong as newspapers, B. stronger than newspapers, C. stronger than the internet. B. Kris said he most enjoys writing stories about A. nightlife, B. skiing and snowboarding, C. small businesses. C. How often does Kris use Japanese these days? A. about 10% of the time, B. about 50% of the time, C. about 90% of the time. A.
And that was the Daily English Show. See you tomorrow. Bye.